Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. Today we've got another great battle between Ondjage and PrussianPrince, where Ondjage leads the Wood Elves under the name Kills, and PrussianPrince takes the Greenskins to the field. A Glade Lord atop a Forest Dragon leads the Wood Elves with Arrow of Kurnos, Prey of Anathrema, and a Potion of Toughness. The Spellslinger of Shadows comes in with Smoke and Mirrors, Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma, the Enfeebling Foe, and a Scroll of Shielding. 2 units of War Dancers make the infantry contingent a capable but small one, while 4 units of Deepwood Scouts, 1 with Swift Shiver Shards, make for a strong range contingent, supported by 4 units of Wild Riders to keep them safe, and a unit of Hawk Riders for airborne missile support, as well as some melee support. The Greenskins are led by a War Boss on foot with a Potion of Toughness, Stand Your Ground, and Wah. His Goblin Big Boss comes in on foot as well. 6 units of Savage Orcs come in with lots of damage resistance, while 3 units of Savage Orc Biggins will look to shut down enemy Wild Riders. 2 units of Goblin Archers and a unit of Orc Error Boys will try to bait and harass enemy cavalry and airborne units, while the Goblin Wolf Riders, Goblin Wolf Rider Archers, and 3 units of Orc Boar Boy Biggins will look to pressure the Wood Elves from multiple angles and shut down their ranged support. Alright, as always, we're going to start with a conversation about deployment, and the Greenskins do have some scouting parties set out front, but the real craziness definitely comes in from the Wood Elves, as we can perhaps expect. So let's keep it zoomed out a little bit here while we discuss their layout, just from left to right. We've got these Wild Riders over here, tucked away in the woods, nice and hidden. We've got the Deepwood Scouts poking up front over here. Right behind them, another unit of Wild Riders. So these guys together will be able to shield some access points, and also, of course, just protect the Deepwood Scouts from the initial enemy advances. Then we have the Glade Lord as well as the Hawk Riders back here, again able to push forward in either direction, provide support wherever necessary, come in for melee as well as range support, while all the way back here we do have that first unit of War Dancers. So these guys are tucked away in the trees. If anything decides to poke up from back here, they'll be able to take care of it, or of course if the Deepwood Scouts fall back far enough, they'll be able to go in and provide some melee support. Then we have these Wild Riders over here, and this unit of Wild Riders as well, helping protect these 2 units of Deepwood Scouts. And again, these guys are able to push forward in multiple directions, screen from the front, the side, and the rear. They're pretty fast, and alongside the Hawk Riders, they'll get quite a bit of work done as well. While we do have this other unit of War Dancers back here, as indicated earlier, again, if the Deepwood Scouts here do fall back, these guys will be able to push in, provide some melee support, hold the enemy in place, while the range support continues to fly in. Then we do have the Spellslinger of Shadows all the way to the side over here, tucked away, I think initially there for the speed boost, but maybe necessary to get some of these spells in later on, able to push in afterwards. And I do think the War Dancers over here as well, able to push in and protect the Spellslinger over here if anything decides to get adventurous and push down the trees on this side over here. Meanwhile, the Greenskins, again, overall they are relatively simple, but they do have some scouting parties sent up front nice and early. We have these Goblin Wolf Rider Archers over here and over here, while these Goblin Wolf Riders are over here. And these guys are able to see if anything is up over here, or of course over here. So they're getting some good vision nice and early, and they're able to come in from multiple sides as well, which is great against the Wood Elves, especially because they might be Vanguard deployed, they might be tucked away and hidden, or they might be spread apart like they are here. So very interesting scouting parties sent out front, but the main Greenskin army is relatively simple. On either flank of this main front line, we do have these Savage Orcs, a pair apiece, while in the center we do have these Savage Orc Biggins, there to get some more heavy hitting in. We do have the Orc War Boss as well as the Goblin Big Boss in the center as well, while these 2 units of Savage Orcs are guarding from the rear, able to push in and provide some support wherever necessary, or of course come in for some flanking maneuvers if the opportunity presents itself. Then we do have the Goblin Archers as well as the Orc Error Boys, and these guys able to provide that range support and really harass enemy Wild Riders. And that's a great call, because that'll keep the Wild Riders at bay when they're trying to scoop in to protect their archers from some of these Savage Orcs and Savage Orc Biggins. While all the way at the back we do have all 3 units of Orc Boar Boy Biggins, again able to push in from multiple sides and get a lot of work done, cause some chaos potentially, and throw the Wood Elves off their game. So with all that said and done, let's take a look at how this all breaks down. And as you can tell, probably right away we're going to have some action on this flank over here, with some initial shots going into these Goblin Wolf Riders as these Wild Riders are being sent in to take care of them as well. We do have the Deepwood Scouts getting some initial shots off, but these guys are giving chase too, just because if they can be taken care of nice and early, it's always a good call. Then the Wild Riders over here as well, pushing into a decent position to try and protect these Deepwood Scouts, while you can see over here these Goblin Wolf Rider Archers are pushing in alongside these guys. These guys are going to bifurcate both of these War Dancers, so they're actually not going to spot either of them, while over here you'll see on the left flank these Wild Riders are pulling down to intercept these Goblin Wolf Rider Archers as they push through, while on the right the Wild Riders over here continue to chase after these Goblin Wolf Riders. So at the front, you'll see the Hawk Riders and the Glade Lord here pushing up to get some initial damage in, while the Deepwood Scouts are getting some early shots off, while also pulling back into some safety, trying to get some damage into the Orc Warboss and the Savage Orc Biggins here. While off to the left over here, you'll see we do have the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers slammed into by these Wild Riders and very quickly taken care of. Their morale is dropping instantaneously. They do not want to stick and fight. Melee is not their forte, so they're going to fall apart right away, as you can see. Meanwhile, the Deepwood Scouts continue to fall back, while all the way in the distance here, these Wild Riders are pulling back. And meanwhile, over here, as these Goblin Wolf Rider Archers are revealed, you can see these Wild Riders being pushed in, and these guys as well pushing in from this side to try and sandwich those guys and get a lot of hurt in nice and early. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see the Glade Lady did decide to get involved in melee, and as a result of that, the Greenskins are piling on to try and get a lot of hurt done. And while in some ways that does make sense, you will notice a very unfortunate decision was made here by the Greenskins. Most of the army is actually continuing downwards, while a large chunk of it is staying behind. Neither of these two parts is strong enough to deal with this situation. So these guys over here are the stronger half, obviously, but they have to chase after these Deepwood Scouts, and they can be taken care of by some Wild Riders doing some pretty good back and forth hit-and-run tactics. Meanwhile, this clump back here is very heavy on the range support, but the Glade Lord and the Hawk Riders can dive in, pull out, and again charge into these Goblin Archers or the Orc Arrow Boys whenever they so choose without having too much to worry about. So this was a bad split and maybe not the best decision here. Meanwhile, you'll notice though all the way back here, the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers in a bit of a tight spot. They don't really have a choice at this point though, so as they're charging up the field, you'll notice they do get charged from both sides here as the Wild Riders come in and decide to settle the score basically instantaneously. Meanwhile, over here we do have the Orc Boy Biggins pushing forward. They do want to shut down the Deepwood Scouts, try to get that range support taken care of nice and early, so these Wild Riders do have to push up to respond, while all the way over here you'll see the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers have been made to shatter completely, so these Wild Riders are able to return to the main engagement over here. Meanwhile, further up here, you'll see the Glade Lord has decided to disengage, pull away, as have the Hawk Riders, as the range support did come in, which is not a bad call, having that range support. As they came in, they were able to force these guys to pull away, but now the Deepwood Scouts are getting some work done on the Orc Boy Biggins, and these Wild Riders as well are preparing to charge in and intercept those guys before they're able to hit the Deepwood Scouts. Meanwhile, down here, you'll see we do have the Orc Boy Biggins trying to close the gap here, but these Wild Riders are pushing in right away, trying to get a good interception in there, and they do a great charge. And you'll notice also we have the Enfeebling Foe going down on these Orc Boy Biggins. Great cast from the Lore of Shadows. That's going to do a lot of work, make sure that those Orc Boy Biggins are not able to get much work done, and they're going to get taken care of basically right away as well. Meanwhile, all the way on the right flank, you'll see, before we could even make note of it, the Orc Boy Biggins have been taken care of, as the Wild Riders and the Glade Lord dove in to take care of them, instantaneously shattered, so they're not going to be a problem on the field anymore. While over here you can see this unit of Orc Boy Biggins is trying to chase after these Deepwood Scouts, and a nice split here as well. These guys are taking two different angles, so they're able to continue opening fire. Even if one gets engaged, the other is able to provide some support. While you can see as well, this unit of Orc Boy Biggins has been completely destroyed, especially with the Enfeebling Foe activated on them. So great cast there, great job using magic to support the Wild Riders in a situation where they already sort of had the advantage, but just making sure they're able to take care of that engagement a lot more quickly. Meanwhile, over here you'll see these Orc Boy Biggins are being intercepted by these Wild Riders, so they're deciding to charge back, but the Wild Riders have a much better charge bonus, so they're going to have the upper hand here as they come clashing in. And you can notice also the Hawk Riders back here, rather than just sticking in a distance and firing from a distance, they're going to dive into melee onto these Orc Boy Biggins as well, just to try and shut them down as quickly as possible and protect these Wild Riders from a prolonged melee situation. Meanwhile, you'll see over here as well we have these Goblin Wolf Rider Archers retreating, so that's been taken care of. While over here as well, all the way up in the distance, we have the Orc Warboss popping Stand Your Ground and Wa to try and have a better chance at defeating the Glade Lord. Meanwhile, of course, the Wild Riders as well as the Hawk Riders here disengaging, as that unit of Orc Boy Biggins has been completely shattered, and the Deepwood Scouts continue to pull back, get a safe distance, so they're able to get a lot of damage done without actually being engaged. And meanwhile, at this point, you'll notice the Wood Elves have noticed a vulnerability. These Greenskin Archers back here have been left completely isolated, and both of these Wild Riders come charging in from both sides. An attempt at an interception there, but completely ignored. The Wild Riders continue charging in, and here you'll see a wonderful clash from both sides as we get a nice mushroom sandwich. Great hit there. These range units are taken care of in one quick hit. Completely devastated. They're not going to be a problem anymore. So great thinking there by the Greenskins, but unfortunately they were not able to protect those guys for long enough to actually cause any real damage. Meanwhile, over here you'll see these Deepwood Scouts are now running away from these Savage Orc Biggins and these Savage Orcs as they are giving chase. These Orc Boy Biggins as well, causing a bit of trouble, but of course the Glade Lord is there, able to provide some support, while over here these Goblin Wolf Riders have been hit by the Prey of Anathema just to make sure they're not able to push in from this side and surround the Archers from from all directions. Meanwhile, you'll notice the Glade Lord is getting involved here, diving into melee again to protect these Deepwood Scouts to make sure they're able to pull back. Great micromanagement there just to make sure everything stays alive. Meanwhile, over here as well, you'll see as these Savage Orc Biggins try to give chase, we've got a lot of range fire coming in, and these Hawk Riders as well, providing some range support. All the way back here, though, these War Dancers still staying very patient, very vigilant, making sure they don't dive in before absolutely necessary, because these guys otherwise will turn around and decide not to engage. They can pick their battles if these guys reveal their hand too early. Meanwhile, all the way off in the distance there, you'll see these Goblin Wolf Rider archers that had earlier surrendered from the central position, being completely taken care of and wiped off the field by these Wild Riders. Great call there, making sure that they don't return into the battle later on. Meanwhile, you can see the Goblin Archers over here completely shattered. This unit of Goblin Archers as well being chased down to shatter, while this unit of Orc Arrow Boys left alone for now, mainly because the Wild Riders have to be very careful about some of these Savage Orcs that are over here. But apart from that, they're basically taken care of. They're not going to get much work done anymore. And all the way over here, you'll see as well the Deepwood Scouts still kept very safe, still keeping their distance from these Savage Orc Biggins. Meanwhile, the Wild Riders over here do need to be kept safe from the Goblin Big Boss as they come charging in, or as he comes charging in, I should say. But that range fire is going to do a lot of work. So you can see spreading the fire, spreading the love, getting a lot of hurt done in multiple directions, while all the way back here, the Deepwood Scouts retreat all the way into the trees, and now the War Dancers finally get involved to intercept and make sure these guys aren't able to push through. Now, the War Dancers aren't going to have the best of times against the Savage Orc Biggins. They do take the charge, and immediately they take a little bit of hurt, but they are causing a lot of damage back as well. And the Hawk Riders decide to get involved in melee as well. A nice rear charge there, making sure that these War Dancers do come out on top. Deepwood Scouts get pushed in as well into melee to hold these Savage Orc Biggins back so that these guys who still have some ammo are able to get some shots off. They're not going to do perfectly, but that range support is obviously going to help. And with the Glade Lord so nearby, some morale support there as well. All the way up front here, meanwhile, you'll see the Savage Orcs are continuing to give chase to the Deepwood Scouts, and the story is the same as it was earlier. Not really caring, pulling back, keeping a safe distance. The Orc Warboss also not able to close the gap, while all the way over here you'll see we have these Wild Riders as well pushing in just to clean up a little bit. Now it's all about cleaning up, making sure enough damage is done to the Greenskins to make sure that they surrender. Over here you'll see these Savage Orc Biggins, and these Savage Orc Biggins have completely given up. These guys have completely shattered, in fact, and these guys are wavering. They were routing earlier, but they're now willing to come back into the fray, while all the way in the distance over here, the Orc Arrow Boys have finally been wiped off the field. They are shattered, and they've decided they don't want to stick around and wah anymore. Meanwhile, the Orc Warboss here trying his damnedest to shut the gap down and at least shut down one unit of Deepwood Scouts. You'll notice they have been very well taken care of, but in response, the Prey of Anathema does go down, and the Deepwood Scouts don't even care. They're not even focusing down on the Orc Warboss. They're firing at this unit of Savage Orcs instead, trying to get some damage done to make sure they take a decent amount of pain. Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma does go down, slowing them down significantly, causing a decent amount of damage as well, just to make sure they eat a lot of damage, hoping that that'll be the last straw basically that'll break this camel's back. The War Dancers dive in as well to get some damage in, with the Hawk Riders providing some support, while over here finally we have these War Dancers getting involved in melee, diving into these Savage Orcs, trying to get some hurt in, a decent amount coming in from that initial charge. The Enfeebling Foe does go down on the Savage Orcs. The Orc Warboss does try to dive in, counters with Wah and Stand Your Ground, trying to protect these guys, but unfortunately that was far too little, far too late. Across the field you can see the Greenskins are shattering. They do not wish to fight, and a wonderful, close victory for the Wood Elves. The Greenskins were torn apart into 3 distinct parts, and this made it easier for the Wood Elves to take care of them. The range contingent was left on its own, completely unprotected, and were quickly taken care of, while the 2 melee contingents could not keep up with the enemy, and they weren't strong enough individually, so they were shot to bits while being screened by cavalry. The Wood Elves were able to bait the enemy apart, and the Greenskins' inability to resist the bait was their downfall. If they had stuck together and pushed forward as a collective, they stood a chance to take out enemy cavalry while scaring off ranged units. Very interesting thinking there with the range support with the Orc Arrow Boys and the Goblin Archers, but unfortunately, being torn apart did them no favors. Remember, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. As always, I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's great to see what other commanders are up to in the community. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.